Hello, I've written down something which I'm going to read, and the reason I wrote it down is because I wouldn't be able to find the right words otherwise. Over the holiday break, one of our team members, Patrick Dane, died in a car crash in the UK. At the time of recording, the authorities have not released any details about the accident, but will do so in due time. Patrick was 34 years old. You didn't know Patrick very well because he only joined the team a few months ago, but he was our senior news editor at thisweekinvideogames.com. He arrived at a really critical moment for us because we just launched the site and we got all this support and we needed to scale up so that we could provide, proper news coverage. And Patrick was the absolutely perfect fit for that. He was experienced, hardworking, knowledgeable, deeply committed to this industry and the importance of covering it well. And above all, he was really passionate. And that was what drew us to Patrick more than anything else. And that was what made him such a joy to work with. Because I think this is an industry where, like, if you turn your hobby into a job, sometimes you can love it a lot less. But that definitely wasn't the case for Patrick. Like, he really, really loved doing what he was doing. He loved video games. He loved this industry. And you could absolutely feel that in every interaction that you had with him. On a personal level, Patrick just had a really lovely nature. He was inquisitive, he was kind, he was thoughtful, he was just nice. Like, he's just a really nice person, you know what I mean? And I got the chance to meet him at Bungie HQ years ago. I met him again last year in Gamescom. I just really enjoyed being around him, and when we had the chance to welcome him to the team, I was really excited about that. He was also doing really phenomenal work for us. I think anyone who's been reading the site over the last few months would have seen just how much of a difference he made, how much he supercharged things with his passion and his dedication and his energy. He was only with us for a very short time, but in that time, he became indispensable, and so this is a really devastating loss for us as a team, and I think for the wider games media landscape, because I know he was very well regarded and respected across the board. At this time, our thoughts are with his family. We've been in contact with them this past while, and we've sought their permission to make this announcement to you today and to publish some of Patrick's remaining work, since it is the last coverage that he did of this industry that he loved. You'll find his Game of the Year list up on the website now, and I'll leave a link to that below. And that brings us to this video. This video isn't your typical Game of the Year list. It's more focused on the outside picks, and it isn't just from me, it's from the whole team. Prior to the break, I asked everyone to record a little snippet shouting out their favorite outside pick of the year, and Patrick's pick is in here too. It's the first time you'll hear his voice on this channel, and I'm devastated that it will be the last time too. To Patrick, thank you so much for everything you did. Rest in peace. In a year where some of the most successful games were sprawling, emotional sagas demanding dozens or hundreds of hours from the player, it's striking that perhaps the year's most emotionally arresting game has a runtime of around about an hour. And Roger is a game that is best experienced knowing as little about it as possible. It's $5 on Steam and on Switch, and if you trust me, I recommend just grabbing it now and then using the chapter select feature in the YouTube player to skip to the next section of the video. But if you need a little more convincing, I'm happy to oblige. Just gonna give people another second to skip forward if they need to. Okay? Here we go. And Roger is about a little girl who awakens in her home one morning, or at least she thinks it's her home. There she sees her father laying on the couch, or at least she thinks it's her father. Reality turns on a dime in And Roger, and in one moment the girl is safe, comfortable, secure, and surrounded by those she loves. The very next moment she's exposed, vulnerable, confused, isolated, and threatened. A man she doesn't know in a place she doesn't recognize is forcing her to take pills without disclosing what they do, all while gently offering reminders, encouragement, and reassurances. It's all right. You know me. You are home. You are safe. This will help. And Roger is a game about those most heartbreaking events, dementia. Using no more than a single cursor, And Roger carefully ushers the player through a tiny sliver of the lived experience of someone suffering from dementia and someone trying to care for her. Through the simple moving of a mouse, the game's scenarios and puzzles will convey the confusion, the moments of clarity, the barriers and the breakthroughs. Something as simple as washing your hands is enough to make you realize, perhaps for the very first time, what it must be like to suffer with this condition, as the shifting order and location of icons makes even the most basic of tasks feel overwhelming. Underpinning this tale is a profound message about love and about faith, a topic not often touched upon in games, and one that gives us pause within the context. For where one might rightly find in God the strength to persevere, another might rightly wonder what sort of God would render such a cruel affliction unto the world. And Roger is as uplifting as it is sad, but it's at all times beautifully drawn, written, composed, and designed. It does in 60 minutes what few games are able to achieve in 60 hours. It challenges and it moves, and no matter what you take away from its heartbreaking story, it will stay with you long after its brief runtime draws to a close. Sophia may forget, but you never will. All right, that's the first one down. Austin, what do you got for us?
Man, so this won Game of the Year at the Australian Game Developer Awards, and for good reason. This was hands down one of the best things I played this year, and a real pleasant surprise since I'm not typically drawn to this genre. The Drifter from Australian developer Powerhoof is a point-and-click adventure game that follows a man who discovers that death sends him back in time a few minutes. This leads him down a rabbit hole to discover where this ability came from, along the way becoming embroiled in a small-town kidnapping mystery that later spirals into something much more. It's pretty wild, all gas, no brakes adventure, but beneath the chaos of it all is a very human story about learning to live with our regrets rather than allowing them to consume us. Propped up by expertly written characters with top-tier, authentically Aussie voice performances, a particular standout being the leading man Mick, whose deeply rooted flaws and insecurities make for a sad dad story that feels a little more nuanced and mature than the others I've seen. The time loop conceit is used to such brilliant effect here too. The Drifter's puzzles require experimentation, attentiveness, and quick wit to overcome, and the fact that death is often just a few minutes away in many of these scenarios leads to a remarkable sense of tension for a point-and-click adventure game. I can often find myself clicking around in a panic, trying to find a solution, MacGyvering together different tools, very much echoing how Mick feels in those moments. Even if you're like me and have zero nostalgia or interest for point-and-click adventure games, I think you'll be surprised by how the Drifter's gameplay keeps you on your toes and how its story and characters stick with you.
Look, obviously, you've heard of Cronos The New Dawn. It's by no means an under-the-radar pick, but of all the games I've reviewed this year, this is the only one that I look back on and think to myself, you know what? Maybe I should have rated this one a little higher. Cronos is the first original home run from Bloober Team, and we honestly should have seen this coming. Over the past decade, they've been ratcheting up their offerings, honing their skill set to the point where they could deliver the extraordinary remake of Silent Hill 2, which, while not perfect, was truly additive while also fully respecting the source material. Cronos delivers the outstanding presentation that Silent Hill 2 did, only now directed towards a post-apocalyptic sci-fi setting with a time-shifting twist. Visually, it's just a stunning game both in the spectacle of its setting and in the grotesqueness of its horror. Sound design and music are just as expertly deployed, delivering memorable, chilling, informative soundscapes. The story side of things is a topic of much discussion. I find myself in the minority since it didn't resonate with me as much as it did with others, but those who loved it praised it for its themes, its post-pandemic inspirations, its mysterious main characters, and its surprising twists. There is, however, no disagreement when it comes to Cronos' core survival horror action gameplay loop, because everyone agrees this shit rocks. It's not easy, particularly at the beginning where a tight ammo economy and an overwhelming number of foes can make things feel impossible, but push through that initial speed bump and you'll find one of the best survival horror combat loops since Resident Evil 4, delivering a nearly endless number of butt-clenching, nail-biting, edge-of-your-seat combat scenarios that will always see you scrape by with just like a single bullet left and just a tiny sliver of health. Cronos can feel a bit derivative at times, but there is more to it than its inspirations. It's a really brilliantly made action horror game that deserves to be talked about more, and I truly hope that Bloober have plans to continue this franchise into the future, because this is a setting and a gameplay loop I would love to one day return to. Speaking of games you've heard about and that deserve a second look, show them what you got for us, Stu.
In his review, Ralph said he had an appreciation for what Kirby Air Riders was, but didn't quite love it. And sure, this game isn't for everyone. It's a relic of a bygone era before the reign of battle passes and live service promises. It's a feature-rich, co-op heavy celebration of all that makes Masahiro Sakurai one of the most important game makers in the business. But do you know who this game is for? It's for the kids that would wake up at 5 in the morning to get a few extra hours in to play the original Kirby Air Ride at sleepovers in 2003. The kids that were not allowed to have home video game consoles and made lifetime friendships playing the original together on the couch at other people's houses. Those kids are me. And one of the greatest joys I've had all year is playing Kirby Air Riders online with my best friend I've had since preschool. Every time we hop on, it feels like it did over 20 years ago, sitting together in his living room, hoping his parents would sleep in just a little bit longer than usual so we could soak up as many precious stolen seconds as we could playing City Trial before they woke up. So if you don't have some intense nostalgic connection to the original, why play Kirby Air Riders? Well, it has a story mode, a regular racing mode, a top-down Micro Machines style racing mode, and the GOAT, City Trial mode. On top of that, you have machine customization, character customization, and even customization for your online license ID thing completely obtainable when you boot up the game. There are no microtransactions, nothing hidden behind DLC, and the game is feature complete, with Sakurai commenting that the team will be disbanding in the coming months to work on other projects. There is nothing stopping you from enjoying everything that Kirby Air Riders has to offer from the moment you fire it up, and in 2025, that feels like a very rare occurrence.
Man, what can I say about Skate Story that you cannot see and hear just from watching a few seconds of gameplay? Honestly, quite a bit. This is a game that at first glance feels like a vibes-based game. Surely the solo developer Sam Eng is just using skating as a convenient canvas for some flashy visuals and a killer soundtrack from Jersey-based band Blood Cultures. Surely we can file this under the likes of Sable and Gris and Sword of the Sea, games where the presentation is the game. You can probably guess where I'm going with this, but the answer to all of the above is a resounding no. Skate Story is so much more than its distinctive visuals or that soundtrack, which would have got a Game of the Year nomination had it made it in time for the awards deadline. No, Skate Story is right there in the title. It's a story about skating, and both the story and the skating are equally important. On the story side, this is a game about a demon made of glass and pain who must eat the moon, 7 of them in fact. The moon is a metaphor for whatever you want it to be, with Sam Eng acknowledging that even he isn't quite sure what it means. A shattered, nearly impenetrable narrative starring a pillow man, laundry proprietor, and a pigeon in a coffee shop suffering from writer's block all has meaning, but the precise nature of that meaning is for you to decide. You can meditate on all of that as you skate, and it's here where Skate Story delivers its biggest surprise. This is a really, really fantastic skating game with some incredibly refined, responsive, and satisfying skating mechanics. Don't imagine the arcade stickiness or floatingness of Tony Hawk. Instead, imagine something much more precise and exacting and demanding. Demands that often feel at odds with the euphoria you feel as you're gunning down an off-ramp with blood cultures blaring, chasing a moon that's trying to escape. The distance between your skill and that euphoria is, I think, the truest rendition of skating I've experienced in a video game. And knowing that Sam Eng was motivated entirely by the desire to recreate that feeling for others to experience, I think he nailed it. In my preview, I said you've never seen or heard a game quite like Skate Story, but after now having experienced the whole thing, I can confidently say that you've never played one quite like it either, and you really, really should. Alright, so we've heard from Austin and Stu already, but there's another member of the team named Maddie, and you've never heard from her before, so say hello to Maddie, and say hello to a most unexpected Game of the Year pick.
Hi, my name is Maddie, and you've never heard my voice before on the channel, but I'm a writer over at This Week in Video Games. I was also working on my master's dissertation this year, so uncomplicated, cozy games were really front and center for me in the last 12 months. I've already written extensively about my Game of the Year on the site, but I'm still really enjoying it, so I've said it before, and I will say it again. I ate up Tales of the Shire like a sweet little treat. I love this game, and it's the first title in a long time that's been able to gleefully hold my attention for the majority of the transatlantic flight back to my parents' house in the States. And I know that may not sound like much of an endorsement, but for my Instagram Reels addled brain, it is. Tales of the Shire is just a joyful game about living a joyful life, and believe it or not, that brought me joy, and it does not get much more complex than that. I love Lord of the Rings, and I really appreciate Tales of the Shire's employment of the storybook side of Tolkien's work. This isn't a violent, war-based game like other Lord of the Rings titles, and while these stories heavily involve war and tragedy, they're also fairy tales, and that's the part of Tolkien's mythology that Tales of the Shire successfully draws from. Ultimately, despite reported gameplay issues, this was just a really lovely, simple game, and that's all I needed during a very busy 2025. And it's also most of what I have to say about Tales of the Shire. It's a subtly detailed, lovingly crafted game that I've been very happy to viscerally enjoy in my personal life and publicly enjoy on the internet.
Skate Story and this game, Lumines Arise, made me reflect on how much our enjoyment of something can be enhanced when we experience it knowing who made it and why they made it. That knowledge cannot take a bad game and make it good, but it can give us a shortcut to understand why something is good. I don't know if that makes sense, so just let me explain. Lumines Arise is a puzzle game, a sequel to the PSP classic from all those years ago. It's a simple enough game. Combine blocks to make squares. The squares clear when the line wipes over them. The bigger the squares, the more points you get. Doesn't get much simpler than that, except for maybe Tetris, which funnily enough is the game the team worked on before this one when they delivered Tetris Effect. But there's another layer to Lumines, and it's in understanding the studio and the people behind it. Enhance is a studio founded by Tetsuya Mizuguchi of Space Channel 5 and Rez fame. Owing to Rez, he became obsessed with something called synesthesia, a neurological phenomenon where people's color perception is triggered by sound, such that when they hear certain sounds, it's as though they're seeing or feeling certain colors. Mizuguchi's obsession has led Enhance down two distinct but intertwining paths. One path, a cutting-edge synesthesia research arm, where they partner with technologists to develop hardware and immersive sensory exhibitions designed to evoke the sensation of synesthesia. And the other is a game-making arm that looks to deliver the feeling of synesthesia through more traditional means. I'm not sure that you can call Lumines Arise traditional, however. The puzzle mechanics are fairly straightforward, but the level of sophistication that's gone into the music, soundscape, and visuals needs to be seen to be believed, and no, short clips such as these do not do them justice. The tactility of the blocks you're manipulating is unlike anything I've ever experienced in a video game. Even with a simple Xbox controller, I could feel the distinctiveness of each and every block, and I can recall them even now as I write these words. This is a wonderful puzzle game, absolutely, but more than that, it's a unique, unforgettable sensory experience. Enhance knows that video games can make you happy or sad or tense or excited. What interests them is, can video games make you feel the thing between those feelings? Can they make you feel a thing that you can't quite put into words? The answer is yes, and Enhance have done it here with Lumines Arise, and since I can't quite explain what that feeling is, you'll just have to experience it for yourself. All right, Ed ain't typically one for sport, but for some reason this one hit him right in the feels. Tell him, Ed.
It's honestly really cruel of Ralph to ask me to choose just one outside pick, because my entire personal go-to list is virtually just outside picks. But if I actually had to recommend one to other people, my pick would be Despelote by Julian Cordero and Sebastian Valbuena, because it is by far one of the most unique games of the year. No exaggeration. This is a narrative game, it's a slice of life game, it's an immersive documentary about the culture of soccer and the culture of Ecuador in the early 2000s. It's a game about remembering what it was like to be a mischievous and curious kid, running around without a care, losing track of time, and getting in trouble with your parents when you're home late and covered in mud. It's also a playable autobiography about Cordero and his relationship to home, his path through life, and a wistful contemplation about growing up and remembering those fleeting moments that have shaped who you've become. And most of all, it's just an incredible video game that lets you completely immerse yourself in a completely different culture, a completely different lived experience, and get a whole new way of seeing the world in just a couple of hours. This is the kind of video game that truly does push the medium forward, in my opinion. It expands your idea of the kinds of stories we can tell with games, and how we can change up the formal structure of games to tell stories. And it's just achingly beautiful and poignant to boot. The ending sequence has, no joke, stuck with me ever since May, and I think about it all the time. Oh, and the first person kicking mechanic absolutely rules. So please, play Despelote. Do it for me.
Ball X Pit, or as I believe it's properly called, Ball Pit. Would you believe me if I told you that I put like 25 hours into this game over the span of about a week? Well, you shouldn't, because I put 25 hours into this thing over the span of like 3.5 days. While the genre of game can differ wildly, every year serves up one or two of these addictive indie breakouts that are based on extremely simple mechanics, but owing to sound roguelike elements and meta progression, they just hook you and the hours disappear. Think Vampire Survivors, Balatro, Megabonk, Clover Pit, stuff so dangerously addictive it ought to be regulated. Ball Pit falls squarely into this category. It's a spin on the classic Brick Breaker, where your character shoots little balls that damage slowly advancing enemies, and with that core mechanic in place, the roguelite bullshit takes the wheel. Imagine upgrades that let you fire twice as many balls, and then imagine another one that lets you shoot one big ball that then shoots out lots of little balls, and then imagine another one that lets you evolve the big ball so that it becomes a whirling set of samurai swords that inflict bleed on everything they touch. Now imagine more than a dozen unlockable characters, each with their own unique spin on shooting, and then imagine nearly a dozen maps that each offer up unique enemies, bosses, and music. The thing that I really love, but a lot of people seem to love a lot less actually, is the inclusion of a base building element where you have to build new structures and harvest resources, and the way you do that is by bouncing around your little guys like Lemmings meets pinball. I played this for 25 hours straight, unlocked all the main stuff before the infinite meta progression thing kicks in, and then I put it down. In the world of roguelites, 25 hours is considered like bad with a capital B, but for me, I had the best goddamn time with this game, and I will recommend it to any and everyone who will listen. 25 hours for this was perfect, and I don't believe this would have been any better had it demanded 50 hours of my time. A roguelite that is conquerable in 25 hours is A+ in my book, and playing this thing on my couch and my Steam Deck was some of the best hours I had this year. Strong recommend all the way. Okay, so now I want to finish this video with Patrick's pick. He was actually an unashamed live service goblin. He and I first met years ago at Bungie HQ, where we bonded over our love of Destiny, and more recently, when he joined our team, we learned that his live service game of choice was actually Overwatch 2. Turns out he was big into his hero shooters and hero shooter likes, which is why his 2025 pick makes all the sense in the world. I'll let Patrick take it from here.
Hi, I'm Patrick Dane from the news team over at thisweekinvideogames.com. You've never heard my voice on here before, but I've been a journalist for 13 years. But what you should really know about me is that I play a lot of competitive shooters. Live service shooters are a bit of a specialty of mine, and my specialty within that specialty is hero shooters. When Deadlock was first teased, people talked about it like it was Valve's Overwatch killer, but this is a MOBA. It's like through and through. Only it takes place in a third-person perspective. Minions spawn, you push lanes, you jungle, you gank, you go back to stores to buy items to augment your hero, and you try to topple towers and eventually get to the enemy's base and destroy their patron. Despite its seemingly early stage of development though, I've said the phrase Deadlock is the future more than once this year. But I do think 2025 was notable for Deadlock and it's worth talking about. It's the year this game really started to feel like a cohesive vision. They overhauled many of the characters' looks so they actually look like they all exist in the same universe. They created this apartment landing area for when you log in, really adding to the supernatural noir New York that they're building, and they added a bunch of new characters. I think if you want to get a sense of how good Deadlock can be, just look at the design and execution of the Doorman. He's probably one of the most inventive heroes I've ever seen in the shooter genre, just from his design and how he looks and the animations to his abilities. You just look at that hero and you're like, oh yeah, Deadlock has something going on here. The game itself is infinitely complex in the way that most MOBAs are. You could easily put in 100, 200, 300 hours and only then really start to get a grasp of all the game's mechanics. So for those who might be a little bit more familiar with games like Overwatch and Marvel Rivals, the complexity might be more than a lot of people are used to. But for those willing to put in the time, it's clear there's something very special brewing at Valve with this one.